If you're chronically online like I am, you might have seen some claims about a study where men abandon their sick wives. Here's a clip of Dr. K talking about it.
Now, there are studies that show that men have an unfortunately high predisposition of divorcing their wives when their wives get cancer. So many men, unfortunately, do abandon their wives when they get sick. There's data to support that.
And this is the study that he's referring to.
A woman is 6 times more likely to be separated or divorced soon after a diagnosis of cancer or multiple sclerosis than if a man in the relationship is the patient.
This study got a lot of press because it's provocative. Now I'm interested in this topic because it's just part of a larger gender war. Men online talk about how terrible women are, and women online talk about how terrible men are. Here's an example of some of the stuff I see online when someone posts this study.
The shocking truth is that most men don't love their wives. Wives are in denial about it until he leaves them.
Because their property got sick, thus its value decreased, and it's no longer of any value.
Because women view marriage as a mutually beneficial partnership based on love, while most men view it as a service contract.
Don't bother with men, to be honest. They aren't worth it.
This shit makes me never want to marry a man.
Men's motto is take everything from them, give
because
them nothing.
The majority of men are pathetic
The whole
little
institution
boys.
of heterosexual relationship,
Because
marriage,
she's
and
not
motherhood
surprised.
are
Men
oppressive
can
and
also be
exploitative
happily
towards
with a
women.
Are we the baddies? Now I did a deep dive on this topic, and here's what I found. The results are pretty stark. There's a big difference in divorce rates depending on gender. It looks like 21% of sick women end up divorced, while only 3% of sick men end up divorced. This is over a 5-year period, by the way. The paper also says that the overall divorce rate for cancer patients is about the same as the general public. So if we use the 11.6% as the rate of divorce of the general public over this time, then it means that women are 75% less likely to divorce a sick husband than a healthy husband. It also means that men are 80% more likely to divorce a sick wife than a healthy wife. Not gonna lie, the results are looking pretty bad for us boys. The only silver lining I can see here is that almost 80% of men did stay with their wives. So maybe the lesson is not that men are disloyal, but that 20% of men are disloyal. Wait, is this the end of the video? We're not even halfway through the progress bar. In 2015, there was a study that looked at people who had 4 different illnesses: cancer, heart problems, lung disease, and stroke. It involved 5 times as many people as the 2009 study. The first thing you need to know about this study is that it was originally published in March of 2015. Like the 2009 study, it also showed a higher than normal rate of men abandoning their sick wives, but the effect was much smaller than the 2009 study. A few months later, they discovered that they had messed up the data analysis. They incorrectly labeled everyone who dropped out of the study as divorced, which threw off their numbers. So what did the updated study show? It showed there wasn't much of a difference in the divorce rates for men and women with these 4 serious health problems.
Based on the corrected analysis, we conclude that there are not gender differences in the relationship between gender, pooled illness onset, and divorce.
So the study's conclusion is that there's little to no difference between the divorce rates of men and women. But this is confusing. There were big differences between the 2015 and 2009 studies, and I don't see how those differences could just be random sampling error. The 2015 study has 5 times as many patients, which gives it a little more credibility. It seems impossible that both studies were done correctly and they got such big differences. It has me wondering if the 2009 study had some error, like the original 2015 study did. So we've got 2 studies with completely different results. Are there any other studies you could look at? There was a 2010 Danish study of people with multiple sclerosis. They found that men with MS were 33% more likely to end up divorced than the general public. They didn't say exactly how the divorce rate changes for women with MS, just that men's divorce rate was higher. A 2018 Swedish study looked at people with multiple sclerosis. What they found was that men were at 21% higher risk of divorce than healthy men. They found no difference in divorce rates for women with MS compared to healthy women. A Finnish study looked at neurological conditions, heart and lung disease, and cancer. They found an increased risk of divorce for both men and women. However, men's risk of divorce was 22% higher if he was sick, but a woman's risk of divorce was 11% higher if she was sick. The Norwegian study concluded that cancer was associated with a slightly decreased divorce rate for men and women. However, there were some variations in the divorce rate depending on the type of cancer. The overall divorce rate decreased by 11% for sick men and decreased by 6% for sick women. A 2023 Danish study found that men with MS were 20% more likely to be divorced than the general male population. There was virtually no effect on women's divorce rates if they had MS. And the last study, a Scandinavian study of neurological conditions, concluded that divorce rates increased by 27% for sick men and increased by 21% for sick women. Here's a summary of the 8 studies. So what should you take from this? It just doesn't seem like there's any consistent pattern in how serious disease affects divorce rates for men or women. The 2009 study showed really big effects on divorce rates where men seem to be abandoning their sick wives. No other studies have come up with numbers anything like the 2009 study. The other 7 studies showed mixed results, often with sick men being divorced more often than sick women. By the way, the 2009 study also had the smallest number of patients. I can't help but wonder if there was an error in the 2009 study, because if it's true, why can't anybody reproduce the results? It makes me think of the replication crisis in psychology. A few years back, some researchers tried to reproduce the results of famous psychological experiments, and most of the time, they couldn't reproduce the results. Whatever the case, since nobody seems to be able to reproduce the results, we probably shouldn't believe claims about high rates of men divorcing their sick wives.